Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Ian Lees-Galloway.
Much, Mr. Speaker. Well, we've heard from certainly a number of my colleagues on this side of the House and other opposition parties that there are mixed views on this bill, and that's because the three parts of the bill, although superficially appear to do very similar things, actually do quite different things. The similarity, of course, comes from the fact that Parts 1, 2 and 3, each of them amalgamate parts of the public sector, usually amalgamating two different organisations into one single organisation. But of course, the organisations which are being amalgamated are very different. On Part 1, we have the Health Sponsorship Council and ALAC being brought together. Part 2 sees the Mental Health Commission rolled into the Health and Disability Commission, and Part 3 is the amalgamation of the Charities Commission into the Department of Internal Affairs. And I think what this represents is the ideological position from the National Party that reducing the number of public sector organisations is by definition a good thing. It doesn't matter what the outcome of doing that, of that amalgamation might be. The fact that there is an amalgamation, the fact that they are reducing the number of organisations, that by definition is a good thing. Well, Mr. Speaker, nothing could be further from the truth. It is the outcome of those amalgamations that really matters. And that is why I think you've got most parties saying that Part 1, the bringing together of the Health Sponsorship Council and ALAC, that makes a certain amount of sense. It makes one single health promotion agency which is focused on well-being, healthy lifestyles and the promotion of healthy lifestyles. And although I can understand some reservations at a time when there is considerable focus on the issue of alcohol-related harm in New Zealand at the moment, and people's concern that the folding of ALAC into that health promotion agency may reduce the role and the importance of ALAC, we are reasonably confident from the discussions had at Select Committee that that does have positives, and the fact that we'll have one single agency focused on health promotion is a good thing. Then you've got in Part 2, the bringing together of the Mental Health Commission and the Health and Disability Commissioner, and with the Mental Health Commissioner becoming a deputy to the Health and Disability Commissioner. And I think it's fair to say there are some reservations about that change on this side of the House, because mental health has always been the poor cousin of the health system, the Cinderella of the health system, whatever you want to call it. What we're trying to say is mental health does not get the focus and attention that it ought to, and that has certainly been the case for a number of years. There was an effort under the first mental health blueprint to fix that. And of course at the moment what's happening is consultation and preparation for the second mental health blueprint, which of course is being carried out by the Mental Health Commission. We all expect that that will be produced in fairly short order, because of course the Mental Health Commission will cease to exist fairly soon. So they're going to have to get that job done before they disappear. But under the current government there is no mental health target, there is no additional mental health funding for secondary services, and we continue to see the proliferation of this attitude towards mental health services as being a very minor, almost the health system's dirty secret that we don't want to talk about, that we don't want to support and promote. And supporting mental well-being in the community is absolutely part of health promotion. So some reservations about Part 2. Part 3, which I don't really intend to speak about much because my colleagues have addressed that at some length, is of course the part that we are completely opposed to. Now those three different positions are, I think, quite consistent, because what the opposition parties are doing, what Labour is doing, is looking at the outcome of these amalgamations. We are not simply looking at should we or shouldn't we amalgamate or reduce the number of public sector organisations. We are looking at what their role is and what is the best structure for achieving the outcomes that are desirable. Whereas the National Party with this bill simply takes a very, I think, blunt approach, which is that the reduction of the number of public services and the reduction of the number of public organisations in of itself is a good thing. Now, the Part 1, of course, does establish the Health Promotion Agency, and as I said, we are quite supportive of that. I'm looking forward to seeing the work of that agency and seeing it pick up the work that the Health Sponsorship Council has been carrying out. The Health Sponsorship Council works in tobacco control, sun safety for cancer prevention, nutrition and physical activity, and of course minimising the harm related to gambling. And it is that particular aspect of their work that I think is probably going to become more challenging fairly soon if John Key and the government have their way. Because what we've seen, of course, is that this government that's prepared to sell their own grandmother to get a deal is going to increase the number of pokie machines just so that they can get a deal with Sky City. Well, I took a look at the Health Sponsorship Council website this afternoon to see what they have to say about problem gambling. And here's what they have to say. Every day New Zealanders lose $5.5 million on gambling. That is around $2 billion each year, which is lost from our families and our communities. Mr. Speaker, this is a role of the Health Sponsorship Council, is to make this, and that which will be a role of the Health Promotion Agency as established in Part 1 of this bill. And so this is important information that is absolutely relevant to this debate. More than 18,000 New Zealanders are problem gamblers, and around half of the money lost to problem gambling, or to gambling in general, particularly to problem gambling in New Zealand, goes on pokie machines, the very component of gambling that our Prime Minister, John Key, wants to see expanded in this country. And as Kevin Haig said earlier on, this isn't simply about some economic approach to healthcare where people will weigh up the pros and cons of a healthy lifestyle and will choose automatically a healthy lifestyle. What we're talking about here, many of the issues that this health promotion agency will have to deal with, is addiction. And people do not make sensible, logical decisions when they are dealing with addiction. And it is about the environment. It is about how we construct our communities to reduce the harm, to reduce the opportunities to engage in harmful and addictive behaviour. That is what really counts. The Health Sponsorship Council knows that. I'm sure the Health Promotion Agency will know that. The only people who don't seem to know that, Mr. Speaker, is the government over there. Those people who want to increase the opportunities for gambling, who on nutrition and physical activity got rid of the healthy eating, healthy action programs, the health promotion in schools, the very health promotion activities that we should be carrying out in order to actually achieve the outcomes that these agencies are supposed to be focusing on. If you look at the Health Sponsorship Council, they actually look at some of the costs related to the issues that they are trying to work on. I've talked about the costs related to gambling. We already know about the significant costs related to smoking, and of course if we look at the costs related to preventable cancer, for instance. Well, it's estimated that skin cancer costs New Zealand about $57 million a year. But again, what this government is not interested in is health promotion or promoting healthy lifestyles. What they are doing, what we've seen from their reprioritisation of health funding, is movement away from health promotion, movement away from primary health and into secondary health. In other words, we don't care if you get sick, we'll clean up the mess afterwards, but instead of working hard to keep people well in the first place. The last thing I just briefly want to touch on, Mr. Speaker, is the very important fact that the ALAC levy will be secure under this new structure, and that ALAC levy will be used for alcohol harm reduction promotion activities. It's interesting that we have got an alcohol levy and yet we don't have a tobacco levy. And that's a question that needs to be canvassed in much greater detail that can be done this afternoon. But, well, it might be in the budget, but it is, I think, an important factor that whilst we have this very specific levy for alcohol, it is, I think, a gap that we want to consider addressing the fact that we don't have a similar specific levy for tobacco. Mr Speaker, I think in summary, very mixed feelings about this piece of legislation on this side of the House. We look forward to the committee stage where we can get down and talk about it part by part. For now, we will support the bill, but without significant changes to some parts of the bill, that support cannot be guaranteed into the committee stage and third reading.
Jamie Lee Ross.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. I see